The emergency klaxon echoed through the crystalline corridors of Station Epsilon 7, and Admiral Vashy's 6 tentacles twitched with barely contained frustration. Another human problem. Always another human problem. Order, order in this chamber. Vashy's voice boomed through the translators as the assembled council members took their designated positions. The Galactic Integration Committee had been dealing with these humans for exactly 73 standard cycles now, and Vashy was beginning to suspect that accepting their application for membership had been a mistake of astronomical proportions. Judge Quintara settled her massive bulk onto the reinforced platform, her compound eyes scanning the room with judicial precision. "Admiral, I trust this emergency session concerns our ongoing human situation." "Indeed it does, Your Honor." Vashy's tentacles performed what humans might recognize as the equivalent of rubbing one's temples. "General Kraftnog, status report on the integration process." General Kraftnog's armored carapace clicked as he straightened to attention. His species had conquered 12 star systems through superior strategy and overwhelming firepower, yet somehow these humans had negotiated a trade agreement that left the Galactic Council owing them money. "Admiral, the humans continue to exceed expectations in all the wrong ways. They've established colonies on worlds we classified as uninhabitable. They've domesticated species that our xenobiologists deemed too dangerous to approach. And yesterday they asked if they could borrow one of our dreadnoughts to test some modifications they had in mind." Commander Tom Malley, whose people were renowned across the galaxy for their tactical brilliance, added with visible confusion, "They've also been requesting access to our most restricted databases, something about wanting to know where they can find the fun stuff in this galaxy." Admiral Vashy's skin shifted to a shade of purple that typically indicated either deep thought or impending cardiac arrest. "This is precisely why I've called this emergency session. The humans are becoming too comfortable, too confident. They need to understand their place in the galactic hierarchy. And how do you propose we accomplish this?" Judge Quintara's mandibles clicked with skepticism. Every attempt at intimidation has resulted in them either laughing, taking pictures, or asking if they can pet the scary alien. "Simple," Vashy announced, his tentacles weaving through the air with renewed purpose. "We educate them. We show them exactly what kinds of predators exist in this galaxy. Once they understand what true danger looks like, they'll naturally develop the appropriate level of respect and, shall we say, compliance." The council chamber fell silent, except for the gentle hum of the environmental systems. It was the kind of silence that preceded either brilliant strategies or spectacular disasters. In the case of the Galactic Council's dealings with humans, it usually turned out to be the latter. Moran, the Council's chief xenobiologist and arguably the most intelligent being in the room, raised one of her 4 arms. "Admiral, with respect, are you certain this approach will yield the desired results? My preliminary studies of human psychology suggest they have a rather unconventional relationship with danger." "Nonsense," Vashy waved dismissively. "Every sentient species in known space responds to the presentation of superior predators with appropriate deference. The humans may be unusual, but they're still biological entities subject to basic survival instincts." "Fear, Moran. Fear is universal." Moran's expression suggested she had several opinions about that statement, none of which would be considered diplomatic to share in an open session. Instead, she simply nodded and began activating the holographic display system. "Very well, Admiral. I've prepared a comprehensive presentation showcasing the 3 most dangerous predator species known to galactic science. Shall I begin?" "Excellent." General Kraftnog's mandibles clicked with anticipation. Once they see what real apex predators look like, these humans will finally understand why the rest of us have survived this long through careful planning and appropriate caution. Commander Tom Malley leaned forward in his seat, already envisioning the humans' terrified faces. "How long before the human representative arrives?" Admiral Vashy checked the chronometer with 2 of his tentacles while the other 4 arranged his ceremonial robes. "Brandon Torres should be here within the next few minutes. I specifically requested someone with authority to make decisions on behalf of their species." "Perfect timing," Judge Quintara observed with satisfaction. "Nothing quite establishes proper diplomatic relations like a thorough understanding of one's place in the food chain." The council members exchanged what could only be described as smug expressions. Finally, they would put these upstart humans in their proper place. Finally, they would demonstrate the natural order of galactic civilization. Finally, They would show these newcomers why the established species had earned their positions of respect and authority. If any of them had bothered to research human history, they might have realized that fear had never been particularly effective at keeping humans in their place. But then again, if they'd done their research properly, they probably wouldn't have let humans into the galaxy in the first place. Moran activated the holographic display with a flourish that would have made any university professor proud. The chamber's lighting dimmed automatically, casting dramatic shadows across the assembled council members' faces. This was going to be good. Esteemed colleagues, Moran began, her voice taking on the tone of someone about to deliver very bad news to very naive people. I present to you the apex predators of our galaxy. First, the Shadowclaw Hunters of Kepler 442b. The hologram materialized in the center of the chamber, and even the council members who had seen this presentation before couldn't suppress their involuntary shudders. The creature stood nearly 4 meters tall, with 6 limbs ending in claws that could slice through reinforced titanium like tissue paper. Its hide was a shifting mottled black that seemed to absorb light itself, and its dozen eyes glowed with an intelligence that spoke of calculated, patient hunting. These magnificent specimens, Moran continued with scientific enthusiasm, can phase shift through solid matter for brief periods, making them nearly impossible to contain or escape from. They hunt in coordinated packs of 20 to 30 individuals, and their preferred hunting strategy involves stalking their prey for weeks, learning their patterns, before striking with surgical precision. The survival rate for encounters with Shadowclaw Hunters is approximately 0.03%. General Krafnog nodded approvingly. My grandfather lost an entire battalion to a single pack during the Kepler conflicts. Terrifying creatures. Indeed, Moran agreed, then gestured to change the display. Now observe the acid-spitting thorn beasts of the vegan system. The new hologram was, if possible, even more nightmarish. The thorn beast resembled what might happen if someone crossed a rhinoceros with a porcupine, and then gave it anger management issues. Its body was covered in razor-sharp spines that constantly secreted a paralytic neurotoxin, and its mouth housed specialized glands capable of projecting streams of acid with sniper-level accuracy up to 50 meters away. These delightful specimens, Moran's sarcasm was barely concealed behind her scientific demeanor, can dissolve most known materials in seconds. Their acid is so potent that it actually breaks down matter at the molecular level. They're also remarkably intelligent, capable of setting traps and using tools. The vegan colonies were evacuated after a single thorn beast learned to operate a communications array to lure rescue ships. Commander Tom Molly's tactical mind was already working. Perfect ambush predators. They probably use their intelligence to study defensive patterns. Precisely, Moran confirmed. And finally, our personal favorite. The hologram shifted once more, and several council members actually leaned away from the display. The mind-controlling Wraithlings from the Dark Nebula. The final creature was perhaps the most disturbing of all, precisely because it looked almost harmless. About the size of a house cat, the Wraithling appeared to be made of shifting, translucent energy. It floated rather than walked, and its form seemed to bend light around it in hypnotic patterns. Do not, Moran warned seriously, be fooled by their appearance. Wraithlings are parasitic entities that feed on neural energy. They attach themselves to a host's consciousness and slowly consume their free will, turning victims into willing servants. A single Wraithling can control up to 15 hosts simultaneously, and they're capable of complex strategic planning. Entire civilizations have fallen to Wraithling infestations without ever realizing they were under attack. The chamber was silent, except for the hum of environmental systems. Admiral Vashy's tentacles writhed with satisfaction. This presentation never failed to impress upon visitors exactly how dangerous the galaxy could be. Any questions before we? Moran began, but was interrupted by the chamber doors sliding open with a soft hiss. Brandon Torres walked in, and the first thing every alien in the room noticed was that he was eating a sandwich, not hurrying to finish it before the important meeting, not apologetically tucking it away, actually continuing to eat it while walking into what was clearly a formal diplomatic session. Sorry I'm late, Brandon said around a mouthful of what appeared to be turkey and Swiss. Traffic was murder getting through the docking bay. Hope I didn't miss anything important. Admiral Vashy's tentacles performed what humans might recognize as the equivalent of someone clearing their throat diplomatically. Mr. Torres, we were just presenting information about the galaxy's most dangerous predators. Perhaps you'd like to take a seat and— Oh, cool. Brandon interrupted, settling into his chair while taking another bite of his sandwich. Predators. Huh. Are we talking big scary monsters? Or just regular dangerous animals? Because I've got to tell you, the distinction is pretty important where I come from. The aliens exchanged glances. This wasn't going according to plan. Morin, ever the scientist, decided to proceed with the demonstration. Mr. Torres, you're looking at a Shadowclaw Hunter. This creature is responsible for the deaths of thousands of sentient beings. It can phase through solid matter, hunts in coordinated packs, and has a success rate of— Brandon said, studying the hologram while chewing thoughtfully. Neat camouflage. Reminds me of my buddy Jake's cat actually. Mittens can practically disappear in shadows too, though I guess she can't phase through walls. That'd be handy for getting into the treats cabinet. The council members stared at him in stunned silence. Mr. Torres, Judge Quintara said slowly, this creature could kill you in seconds. Brandon shrugged. Probably. Yeah, but then again, so could my grandmother's Pitbull, if I forgot to bring him treats. Where's Brutus in all this? The silence in the chamber stretched on like a bad joke that nobody got. Admiral Vashy's tentacles twitched in what was becoming a familiar pattern of confusion and mild panic. This was definitely not how these presentations usually went. Mr. Torres, Admiral Vashy said carefully, as if speaking to someone who might not be entirely stable. Perhaps you don't fully understand the gravity of what you're seeing. These are apex predators, the most dangerous creatures known to galactic science. Brandon finished chewing his sandwich and nodded politely. Oh, I get it. They're scary. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't want to run into any of these guys in a dark alley, but you keep talking about danger like it's this new concept we humans just discovered. Where I come from, danger is kind of Tuesday. He leaned back in his chair with the casual confidence of someone discussing the weather. Take my grandmother's Pitbull, Brutus. Now there's an apex predator for you. 70 pounds of muscle, determination, and absolutely zero common sense. Last summer, that dog single-handedly fought off 3 raccoons, a possum the size of a small child, and my neighbor's German shepherd named Rex, who, by the way, was supposedly trained by some military guy, and cost more than my car. General Krafnog's mandibles clicked nervously. I'm sorry. What's a Pitbull? Oh, it's a dog. You know, domesticated canine. Humans bred them specifically to be tough, loyal, and absolutely fearless in the face of anything that might threaten their family. Brandon's eyes lit up with the enthusiasm of someone about to share way too much information. Brutus is actually on the smaller side for his breed. Some of those American bullies can get up to 150 pounds of pure muscle and attitude. Commander Tom Molly was frantically making notes on his tactical display. And humans live with these creatures. Live with them. We invite them into our homes, let them sleep on our furniture, and spend ridiculous amounts of money on toys for them. Brandon grinned. Brutus has a toy collection that would make a museum jealous. His favorite is this squeaky hamburger that sounds like a dying space whale when he plays with it. Morin, the scientist, was beginning to look like someone who had just realized they'd made a terrible miscalculation. Mr. Torres, are you suggesting that humans routinely coexist with dangerous predators? Well, sure, Brandon said, as if this were the most obvious thing in the galaxy. I mean, dogs are just the beginning. We've got bears wandering through suburban neighborhoods, looking for garbage cans. Grizzly bears, polar bears, black bears. Each one capable of turning a human into confetti with minimal effort. But people still go camping in bear country for fun. The aliens were beginning to exchange worried glances. Then there are sharks, Brandon continued, warming to his topic. Ocean predators that have remained virtually unchanged for millions of years, because evolution looked at them and said, yeah, you're perfect just the way you are. Great whites, tiger sharks, bull sharks. Some of them can bite through steel. And what do humans do? We get in metal cages and go swimming with them for entertainment. Judge Quintara's compound eyes were blinking in rapid succession. which in her species indicated either deep thought or the onset of a migraine. You swim with these creatures, voluntarily. Oh, absolutely. Shark diving is huge back home. There are entire industries built around it. Brandon pulled out his personal communicator and started scrolling through images. Look, here's my cousin Mike swimming with hammerhead sharks in the Bahamas. And this is my sister Sarah cage diving with great whites off the coast of South Africa. Admiral Vashy stared at the images with the expression of someone watching their carefully constructed worldview collapse in real time. Those creatures look substantial. Great whites can grow up to 20 feet long and weigh over 5,000 pounds, Brandon said cheerfully. But honestly, they're not even the scariest things in our oceans. Ever heard of a saltwater crocodile? Those guys can grow up to 23 feet and have the strongest bite force of any animal on Earth. They're basically living dinosaurs that never got the memo about extinction. General Krafnog was now stress cleaning his armor plating, and humans encounter these creatures regularly. Well, not everyone, but plenty of people do. Australia's full of them. Australians just kind of shrug and get on with their lives. They've also got box jellyfish that can kill you in minutes, spiders the size of dinner plates, and snakes that are basically liquid death with fangs. Brandon paused thoughtfully. Come to think of it, Australia might actually be more dangerous than most planets you guys have shown me. Commander Tom Molly's tactical display was smoking slightly from overuse. How have humans survived as a species? Oh, we're pretty adaptable, Brandon said with a shrug. Plus we've got this thing about not backing down from challenges. Take honey badgers for instance. They're these compact little mammals that will fight literally anything that moves. Lions, leopards, venomous snakes, each other doesn't matter. They just don't care. Humans kind of respect that attitude. Moran was rapidly taking notes on her personal device, her forearms moving in a blur. Mr. Torres, exactly how many dangerous species does Earth host? Brandon scratched his head thoughtfully. Dangerous to what? Because if we're talking dangerous to humans, that's a pretty long list. If we're talking dangerous to everything else, well, that's where it gets interesting. See, humans are kind of at the top of the food chain back home, but we got there through teamwork, tool use, and a really unhealthy relationship with risk assessment. The chamber fell silent again. But this time it was the silence of beings who were beginning to suspect they had seriously underestimated their new galactic neighbors. Admiral Vashy's tentacles had gone completely still, which in his species was typically a sign of either deep meditation or complete system shutdown. But honestly, Brandon continued, seemingly oblivious to the growing panic in the room, the really dangerous stuff on Earth isn't always what you'd expect. Take hippos, for example. Look like big, fat, harmless water horses, right? Wrong. Those things kill more humans in Africa than lions do. They can run 30 miles per hour on land. Their jaws can snap a canoe in half, and they're basically aquatic murder tanks with anger management issues. Moran's note-taking had devolved into frantic scribbling. More deadly than your apex predators. Lions. Yeah, by a wide margin. Hippos are responsible for about 500 human deaths per year in Africa alone. They're territorial, aggressive, and they hold grudges. Brandon chuckled. My uncle went on safari once and said the guide was more worried about hippos than anything else, including the elephants. General Krafnog's armor plating was clicking rapidly now. What about these geese you mentioned earlier? Oh man, geese. Brandon's face lit up like someone discussing their favorite hobby. Those are basically feathered demons sent from whatever hell exists for waterfowl. They're territorial, mean-spirited, and absolutely fearless. A single goose will take on a full-grown human without hesitation. They've got these serrated beaks and wings that can break bones. I've seen grown men run screaming from an angry goose protecting its nest. Commander Tom Molly looked up from his smoking tactical display. But surely they're not actually dangerous to Canadian geese shut down entire airports. Brandon interrupted. They travel in flocks. They're smart enough to hold grudges, and they remember faces. There are documented cases of geese stalking specific humans for months. Plus they poop everywhere. And I mean everywhere. Admiral Vashy's tentacles were now a concerning shade of purple. Mr. Torres, you're describing your planet's wildlife as if it's actively trying to kill you. Well, some of it is, Brandon admitted cheerfully. Chimpanzees, for instance. Cute, right? Wrong again. Those guys are about 5 times stronger than humans. They're incredibly intelligent, and when they get angry, they literally rip faces off. Not metaphorically. Actually physically remove facial features. There's this famous case where a pet chimp named Travis, well, let's just say the victim needed a face transplant. The chamber's environmental systems seemed to be working overtime, as several council members began hyperventilating. Just then, the communication array chimed, and a new hologram materialized in the chamber. A human female with short brown hair and laboratory attire appeared, looking slightly frazzled. "Sorry to interrupt," she said, glancing around at the assembled aliens. "I'm Dr. Amy Kowalski, xenobiologist with the Earth Integration Team. Brandon, you missed your check-in call, and I wanted to make sure everything was going smoothly." Brandon waved at the hologram. "Hey Amy, just giving our new friends here a little education about Earth wildlife. You should have seen their faces when I told them about sharks." Amy looked around the chamber, and immediately recognized the expressions of beings who had just learned something they really didn't want to know. "Oh no, Brandon, please tell me you haven't been describing Earth fauna to them without proper context." "What context?" Brandon asked innocently. "They showed me their scary predators. I told them about ours. Fair trade." Amy closed her eyes and took a deep breath. "Brandon, these beings are from low-threat environments. Their idea of a dangerous predator is something that might actually pose a challenge to their military forces. You can't just casually mention hippos and great whites without explaining that humans have learned to coexist with these creatures." "I did explain that," Brandon protested. "I told them we swim with sharks for fun." "That's not helping," Amy muttered, then addressed the council. "Respected members, I should probably clarify that Earth is what we classify as a Class 12 death world. The fact that humans evolved there is considered something of a statistical impossibility by our own scientists." Moran's forearms stopped moving entirely. "Class 12. The scale only goes to 15, Amy explained apologetically. "And Class 15 is reserved for planets that are actively on fire or composed entirely of acid. Earth ranks just below completely uninhabitable on the Galactic Threat Assessment Scale." Judge Quintara's compound eyes were blinking so rapidly, they looked like strobe lights. "But you mentioned sharks and bears as if they were common encounters." "Well, they are, relatively speaking," Amy said. "But you also have to understand that the most dangerous creature on Earth isn't any of the ones Brandon mentioned. It's actually mosquitoes." Brandon nodded enthusiastically. "Oh yeah, I forgot about mosquitoes. Tiny little flying syringes. Mosquitoes are responsible for approximately 750,000 human deaths annually through disease transmission," Amy continued. "They're small, numerous, and virtually impossible to avoid in many regions. Malaria, dengue fever, Zika virus, yellow fever. Mosquitoes are basically flying plague dispensers." The silence that followed this revelation was the kind of silence typically associated with natural disasters or existential crises. 750,000, General Krafnog whispered. "Per year, give or take," Amy confirmed. "And that's just one species. We've also got funnel web spiders, blue-ringed octopi, cone snails, poison dart frogs, and about 15 different species of snakes that can kill you by looking at you wrong. Oh, and drop bears." "Drop bears?" Admiral Vashy asked weakly. Brandon and Amy exchanged a look. "You probably don't want to know about drop bears," Brandon said. "Let's just say they're the reason Australians look up when they walk through forests." Commander Tom Molly was now rocking slightly in his chair. "How many humans are there?" "About 8 billion, Amy replied. 8 billion beings living on a Class 12 death world," Moran said slowly, as if trying to process an equation that didn't make sense. "And thriving," Brandon added helpfully. "Population's actually growing." Quartermaster A, who had been silently managing data feeds throughout the meeting, suddenly emitted a sound that could only be described as mechanical choking. His cybernetic implants were flashing warning lights in patterns that suggested either system overload or complete breakdown. "Admiral," Quartermaster A announced in a voice that had climbed several octaves, "I've been cross-referencing the human homeworld designation with our colonization databases." Admiral Vashy turned toward him with the weary expression of someone who knew they were about to receive more bad news.
"And Earth, Sol System, Orion Arm.
Classification: extreme hazard, no colonization recommended. Threat level: unsurvivable. Status: quarantine pending geological stabilization. Quartermaster A's voice was getting higher with each word. According to our records, this planet wasn't supposed to develop sentient life for another 50 million years, if at all. The chamber erupted in panicked chatter as various council members began accessing their own databases, only to find the same horrifying information. There must be some mistake, Judge Quintara insisted, though her mandibles were clicking with increasing frequency. Surely no intelligent species could evolve on a world classified as, oh, before I forget, Brandon interrupted cheerfully. Amy, did you bring those photos from your research trip to Australia? The ones with the box jellyfish? Amy's hologram brightened. Oh yes, the Cheronex fleckery specimens were absolutely fascinating. Nearly transparent, tentacles up to 10 feet long, and carrying enough venom to kill 60 adult humans in 4 minutes. Beautiful creatures, really. Admiral Drehorn, who had been silent throughout the meeting, made a sound like a deflating balloon and promptly fainted. His massive form hit the chamber floor with a thud that shook the entire station. Is he okay? Brandon asked, looking genuinely concerned. He'll be fine, General Krafnog said weakly. Drehorn's species has a natural fainting response to extreme psychological stress. It's a defense mechanism. Huh, Brandon said. That's actually pretty smart. Humans just get angry and do stupid things when we're stressed. Security Chief Morden burst into the chamber, his multiple eyes scanning for threats. Admiral, we're detecting massive spikes in stress hormones throughout the station. Several species are showing signs of panic responses. Should I initiate emergency evacuation protocols? Yes, Admiral Vashy said without hesitation. Begin immediate evacuation of all non-essential personnel to safe distance. This is now classified as a potential first contact crisis scenario. Morden's tentacles began working his communication array frantically. All personnel, this is Security Chief Morden. Code Yellow evacuation protocols are now in effect. Please proceed to designated emergency transport bays in an orderly fashion. This is not a drill. Throughout the station, alarms began sounding as beings of various species hurried toward escape pods and shuttle bays, casting nervous glances over their shoulders as if expecting humans to materialize from the walls at any moment. Brandon looked around at the chaos with mild confusion. Did we say something wrong? Amy's hologram sighed. Brandon, I think we may have slightly overwhelmed our hosts with information about Earth's biodiversity. Should we not have mentioned the box jellyfish? Probably not. Brandon shrugged. Well, live and learn, I guess. Hey, before everyone evacuates, do you guys have a cafeteria around here? All this talking has made me hungry, and I only brought the one sandwich. The remaining conscious council members stared at him with expressions that suggested they were witnessing either a miracle or the end of galactic civilization as they knew it. You want food? Commander Tom Malley asked incredulously. After everything that's just been discussed? Sure, Brandon said. Talking always makes me hungry. Plus I'm curious about alien cuisine. Do you guys have anything like pizza? Conclusion. New Galactic Perspective 300 words. 3 standard cycles later, the Galactic Council convened for what would become known as the Great Accommodation Accord. The vote was unanimous. Give the humans whatever they wanted, and pray to whatever deities each species favored that humanity would continue to find galactic civilization amusing rather than annoying. The humans, for their part, seemed delighted with their new role as the galaxy's unofficial exterminators. Anytime a planet reported problems with dangerous local fauna, they simply called Earth. Within days, teams of cheerful humans would arrive with camping gear, barbecue equipment, and an unsettling enthusiasm for meeting the local wildlife. Brandon Torres found himself promoted to Director of Pest Control for the entire galaxy, a position that came with diplomatic immunity, unlimited travel expenses, and a company shuttle equipped with what humans called a tackle box, but what appeared to contain enough equipment to outfit a small army. The final test of this new arrangement came when the luxury resort planet of Relaxia Prime reported an infestation of void mice, creatures roughly the size of house cats with razor-sharp teeth and the ability to chew through starship hulls. Brandon arrived with a team of 3 humans, took one look at the terrifying void mice, and immediately started making the cooing sounds that humans apparently made when encountering small animals. "Oh my God, they're adorable," exclaimed Sarah Chen, Brandon's deputy director, as she attempted to pet one of the supposedly deadly creatures. Look at those little whiskers, and those tiny murder teeth. Who's a good little apex predator? You are. Yes, you are. Within 6 hours, the void mice had been relocated to a nature preserve, the resort was reopened, and the human team was asking if anyone knew where they could get a decent cheeseburger. Admiral Vashy, watching the reports from the safety of his heavily shielded office, could only shake his tentacles in bewildered resignation. Somehow, in trying to intimidate the humans, the Galactic Council had accidentally discovered the most effective pest control service in known space, and the humans thought it was all just good fun.